Hey, good morning, everybody. Coming with another quick tutorial having to do with Firebase functions, but it also makes use of specific a specific collection and document in that collection, as well as specific modifications to your Firestore rules. Somebody had asked recently in a comment to one of my functions videos if I knew of any way to effectively cap the number of actions that can be posted against your Firebase. I think most of us are aware that Firebase has absolutely no method in place to cap incoming read writes, deletes, creations, things like that to your Firestore, which is really quite dangerous, all things considered. Because if your app was to get hacked or hit with like a DDoS attack, sort of attack, or if you just had somebody download your app that hates your guts and knows that you're using Firebase and wants to jack up your Firestore usage, there's a reasonable probability through a variety of avenues that your associated cost from the usage against your Firestore could get really outrageous very quickly. There was a story I had read a while back about some guys that were testing. They were just testing. They weren't even in deployment, but they were testing their Firebase Firestore, and I think within a couple of hours of testing, they had accrued like a multiple $100,000 bill with Firebase. And unfortunately, Firebase has this thing where you can set your top dollar that you want to pay. That doesn't stop the invocations coming into your Firestore, but it lets you know that your financial cap has been reached or is about to be reached. However, there is a delay in that, especially if you are getting a rapid number of invocations to your Firestore. That Firebase alert system can't exactly keep up with it in real time anyway. And so, although probably unlikely that this would ever happen to you, there is still the potential that it could. And if it did happen, you would be in deep for thousands upon thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to Firebase for something that you couldn't help. Why Firebase has not implemented a solution to this, I have no idea. I would like to think it's because they just haven't had time, maybe. Because there are plenty of other databases out there, other hosts that will host your app data that do have automatic caps in place. So it's not like it's impossible to do it. And Firebase's excuse is that they just haven't found a good method yet, which I don't know. Kind of sounds like to me they don't want to allow you to cap your data. But anyway, we have to find a workaround, and I've been playing around with a gateway concept for a while, but it was clunky and it was just kind of overkill for what was having to be done, and it actually required additional invocations against your Firestore to make it work, and it just wasn't efficient. So I sat down and I kind of went through some concepts to see if I could figure out a better way to do it. And I have found a pretty good method for making this work. Is it 100% foolproof? No. Again, until Firebase does something on their side, it's going to be hard for us to create something inside of Firebase that's just absolutely 100% solid. If you wanted to use a third-party server and basically a rate limiter API call, you could do it that way, which would be far more efficient than anything you can do inside of Firebase, but that requires that you have to have an external server and have knowledge of how to set that up and run it. And it's just another point of contact that could fail. So it's not an ideal solution for most people. So what I have found inside of Firebase itself, and this, I mean, it works fairly well. If you're wanting to set a hard limit on how many invocations can come from your app to Firebase, and it's reasonably automated. The only manual step would be when, well, technically you could have it roll back from a function, but that could become kind of sketchy depending on how you have that defined. So really the only manual function in this, or method in this, is that once your cap is reached, you would need to come in and roll your cap back to 0 or whatever, so that your app becomes live again. So, but anyway, let's go ahead and jump into it real quick. It's not difficult, really. Pretty straightforward as to what we're going to be doing. Like I said, we're going to make some adjustments to our rules, and we also need a specific collection here. You can name it whatever you want, so long as it matches up with everything else that you have going on as far as how this setup works. So I think the first thing we'll take a look at real quick is the rules. So these rules look pretty standard, obviously, kind of what you get from FlutterFlow, except there's an added rule in here, and it's this rule right here. And this one as well, which this is a reference point to bring into your rules, so that this rule here knows what it's supposed to be doing, essentially, and knows where it's supposed to be, and what it's supposed to be reacting to. But anyway, you can assign this rule to anything you want to on here, inside of your rules, down through here. Some of my stuff has false in there, and that's because on FlutterFlow's side, whenever I was just playing around with all this stuff, I'm not allowing users to be able to create or delete in some of these. So this is unnecessary in fields where you have a rule set to false, because the user cannot access that action anyway. So it doesn't matter to have this there. Anyway, so the reference up here, like I said, this is telling these rules what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to look. And the function that I have is counter under limit. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to have a cloud function that is going to listen to every collection inside of my Firestore. You can have it listen to every collection, or you could have it it could listen to every collection. It could listen to specific collections. So if you had a bunch of collections, but only some of those collections would possibly generate a massive amount of invocations to your Firestore, then you could narrow it down and just listen to certain collections. That way you're not running that function against everything. But what that function does is I believe I have it listening to, right now for testing, to this music collection and the users collection. And what the function is doing is anytime any sort of update is made to the music collection or users collection, which includes edits made to the documents, or if a new document is added, or if a document is deleted, then the function is triggered. And when that function triggers, based off of an update to that collection, the function is set up to, it takes in this collection, which I've called settings, takes in this single document that's in this collection. There's nothing else in here, Now, if you wanted to have a variety of different configurations, then you could use this same collection, have it all through here. But I've only got one document, and the function is set up to identify this config1. And whenever the function is triggered, it increments this counter by 1. So it just goes up by 1. Now our rules over here. So again, this is counter under limit is also referencing that settings collection and also that config1 document, and it's getting data from that counter field. Now I have it set really low. You obviously probably wouldn't want to cap things at 100. I wouldn't imagine. I don't know where you'd want to cap it, but maybe like 500,000 or something like that. But anyway, so what will happen then is if that counter that's being updated by the custom cloud function reaches 100, then these rules will fire off basically, and the counter under limit will no longer be returning true, it'll be returning false, and therefore all of these invocations to the Firestore, read, writes, creates, deletes, wherever this is included for a collection, will essentially make the access or the ability to do these things set to false. So basically kind of close the gate, and therefore your users won't be able to do any sort of invocations against your Firestore, if that makes sense. It'll just stop everything in its tracks. Now, of course, user experience side, users will probably wonder what in the world's going on and why nothing's working, why nothing's being queried or anything like that. So obviously, if you get to that point, maybe worthwhile having some kind of notification in place to let them know what's going on. But this will effectively prevent them from continuing to bombard your app and your Firestore with additional invocations that could make your associated costs go sky high. So it's a reasonable solution. Again, it's not just like the absolute best. There are better ways. Firebase could fix this. That would really be the best way. But for what we're working with, this does work. It works pretty well. So one thing though down here, and I left it like this actually because I think it's actually possibly a good idea, really. Wherever it's at, where's my users collection? Here it is. So my users collection, you can see that I've left this as null. It's not, even though I put this in here, which I was playing around with it, I don't necessarily really need this in here because this is not being used inside the users collection. So what that means is that the user will still be able to log into your app and view information associated with their document, which for what I'm doing, I think that would be useful because then I could have some sort of message that displays to the user if they log in or something like that, or if they pull up the app and everything's bricked out. It'll let them know what's going on. So, but anyway, so that doesn't this rule doesn't apply really to the users collection. You could make it apply if you wanted to. You could make it so that they couldn't do anything at all. But I would say that if you're going to do that, where you make it so that even the users collection is inaccessible to the authenticated user, that you also deploy a cloud function that works in tandem with this whole setup that forces the users to log out. Otherwise, it'd be really probably very confusing and frustrating for a user trying to figure out what's going on, and you'd probably get a lot of bad reviews very quickly. So anyway, that's essentially what's going on here. I don't have the cloud function set up to do to notify you as the administrator. You could set it up that way if you wanted to, where it could trigger an email and send you an alert if you wanted to, letting you know that your Firestore has been locked. You could set it up to do a variety of things, really. If you wanted to use a third-party service, I think, not SendGrid, what's the other one? Shoot. I can't remember the name of it. It's one of those third-party services that enables you to send notifications and stuff like that. But you can also have it trigger like a phone call or a text message. And so you could tie that into your function and have it call you or trigger off a text, if that's easier for being alerted. So that way you can get a heads up that your Firestore is offline. So anyway, that's it. That is the basis of it. So I can show you how it works real quick if you'd like, and also that's my function log. So this is the custom cloud function that's doing this, that update to the document, to the config1 document. Let's see here. Also, something else that could be taken into consideration too is, since you're billed monthly, I think it's monthly, by Firebase for your usage, you could probably set that function up. I mean, I know you could set the function up. It'd be just kind of getting the date spans right. But you could set the function up that at the end of a billing period, if you haven't reached your invocation cap that you have set, then you could fire off the function to reset the cap limit inside of that settings collection, that config1 document. You could have it reset that cap to 0, so you don't have to manually do that unless you just want to let it roll over month to month. I probably wouldn't do that, since I don't want it to eventually just cap off. I want it to cap off at within a billing period if it gets too high. So having a function that triggers at a certain date or time or whatever that rolls your cap back to 0 would be a good idea. But anyway, so that's that cloud function there. Let's see here. This is the code for it. That's what it looks like. Very, 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 very simple, as you can see. Obviously, you'd want to change. So these are my collections. You can add as many as you want in here, as long as you just format them just like these and add a comma between them. But you can rename your collections in here as to what you want them to be for this function to check if anything new has been triggered. And then, of course, this is referencing that config collection. So if you want to have a different name for that collection, you can change it here. And same here with the document name. And I think it is definitely worth noting. I should have pointed this out. Make sure you understand this. The config1 is the document ID. It's not a field name. The field name is called counter, which is an integer field. But the document, so where you would typically just auto ID this thing, I just named it config1. So that's what that is. All right. So anyway, so the document is config1. The collection settings, you change that if you want to. And then it again, the function's just checking those for updates, and then updating the counter field, incrementing by 1. All right, so in the description of this video, I will have the code for this function. I will also have the code that you need to add to your rules for your Firestore. So that way you can update that as you see fit. If you haven't watched my other recent Cloud Function videos that I've uploaded in the past few days. I'd recommend you do so because those will show you how to add the function to your index file and deploy it to your Firebase cloud. I'm not going to cover that in this video, so if you need reference point for that, then just watch one of the other videos. It'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I think that's essentially it. And again, I had it set at 100, but you can change that right here. So whatever you want that to be, however high you want to let it go, that's where you change that. Oh, I was going to show you. I was going to show it in practice. That's right. All right, so I'm just going to add a document here instead of going into FlutterFlow to do it. So right now it's at 1, so it should go up to 2 when I add a document in here. I'll just auto ID that. And there you go. So went up by 2. Real simple. Bear in mind that, more documents that you have being updated simultaneously, the longer the function will take to run its course. Let's see here. Usually I'm trying to look for the duration. It's in the milliseconds, at least for this, because there wasn't a whole lot to that. I just did. It's in here somewhere. Is that the one that I just ran? Yeah. Yeah. So that one took 5 milliseconds. I mean that's nothing, obviously, to be able to run that. But whenever you're dealing with a lot more invocations happening simultaneously and the function having to run against that, then obviously that's going to take longer. So there may be a slight delay. Just keep that in mind. And that's why I'm saying that this is not 100%. This is not the most perfect thing. It's going to be much faster than Firebase notifying you that you've reached your cap, that's for sure. I think Firebase says it can take upwards of an hour to 2 hours, depending on the load, before you're notified that your cap has been reached. Which even then, that's just your billing cap, but it doesn't actually shut anything off. It's still sending invocations during that time. So it doesn't really do you any good. So, I mean, this function trigger could, I don't know, take some seconds. I guess it could take upwards of a minute, depending on how big the collection is and what's going on inside your app. But a minute to shut things down compared to a couple of hours is a make it or break it, quite frankly. You go from maybe a couple $100 extra to several $1,000s extra. So that's a lot more bearable. So yeah, pretty much it. Seemed to ran just fine. No issues, not getting any problems with it. So all right, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. It's very easy, straightforward thing to deal with. So I'll throw the codes in the description. You can roll with it there, and hopefully this helps people. Hopefully this one helps you out some, so that you don't get charged like crazy, because that can be terrifying if that happens. All right, I don't usually do this on my videos because it feels weird, and honestly, I don't even want to do it because it feels like I'm asking something from you, and I'm not a big fan of that. But if you could like and share the video, that'd be helpful. I think I'm like 13 watch hours away from being eligible to monetize. I know that YouTube shows ads on my videos anyway, and it'd be fantastic if I was making money from that. Because I've got some ideas for kind of the direction of everything, where all these tutorials and everything's going, but I've got to have some funding to make that happen. So that'd be great if you could help out with that. And what is it, like, share, follow? I think that's what it is. Sorry, I'm not an influencer, quote unquote. So I don't really know what the right way is to say that. And then, of course, if you like stuff I do, you can buy me a coffee. That link's in the description too, and a link to the Discord server where you can get help for all of your FlutterFlow, Firebase, and other app-related needs. So come join us over there. Be happy to see you. All right, take care.